In 5th place, we have a Chicago Dragon. Honestly, that sounds like an awesome sports name, and I'd cheer for that hockey team. Okay, I'd cheer for it if they weren't playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Gotta support the home team first, or else I'd horrify my grandma, and I don't want to do that. A North Chicago Portage Park community resident and his neighbor observed a huge dragon-like cryptid flying overhead while working in their yards on Tuesday, May 18th of 2021 at around 1:30 in the afternoon. For reference, the location is approximately 2 miles east of O'Hare International Airport for folks like myself who need a better idea of the area. The witness, Fred, and his neighbor Roger were outside, working on their lawns. As you do. Fred had said that his back was hurting him, so he sat on the front steps and leaned back, and as he did this, he looked above the neighborhood and observed a huge winged being flying overhead. He stated that it was shaped like a brontosaurus with a long neck, viper-like head, thick body, and a long tail that ended in a spade-shaped appendage. Okay, I like dinosaurs. The bat-like wings extended broadly from the side, almost with the same width as the length of the creature's body. Fred believed that it may have been between 250 to 300 feet in altitude, but it was tricky to decipher since the day was kind of overcast. The creature was dark gray and black, and the wings were definitely large enough that he could tell it had a membrane/skin structure. After both men watched for a few seconds, the winged beast lowered its head and dipped towards the left, flapping its wings and quickly disappearing towards the north. The creature was spotted again in 2017 by a fellow named Sean and his buddies. He described it as being around 7'2" in length, completely black except bright yellowish eyes like a cat. It stood in the Chicago plaza he was in for about a minute or two, staring at everyone around before jetting up to the sky and disappearing. It made everyone feel very uneasy. No kidding. It only took off after some of the folks present threw rocks at it. Similar to Fred, he described it as having very large wings that he could hear flapping and described the noise as similar to a truck's brakes. It flew up and flew in a wide circle, making that sound once more and then flew off in the direction of the Stevenson Expressway. All in all, I managed to find 162 recorded spottings of this Chicago cryptid, so if you're in the area, look up! In 4th place, we have Pictures in the Sky. Time to go back in time to July 31st of 1914 in Pennsylvania, when one Harry Huddleston was on his way home from work and his attention was drawn to the sky, where he was startled to see a picture vividly outlined in the heavens of an immense house filled with younglings dressed in white and each one having a black band around their arm. While he was observing, the wards came out of the house in columns of 2, dividing at the door with a column going in opposite directions. Going into more detail, Mr. Huddleston declared the sight he saw was that of a building outlined in a blaze of white. Then appeared 2 younglings, one entering and the other coming from the building. Like I mentioned before, both were dressed in white, although the bows in which their sashes were tied were very different. Alongside the house were apparently thousands of younglings, each smiling. The faces of 2 became so distinct he declared that he would know them if he ever saw them ever again. He declared that the sight was too vivid for him to be mistaken, and he was not dreaming or hallucinating. He told his family but didn't really talk about it publicly until Mrs. Rush Lutz, a neighbor, had a similar and equally remarkable experience that she was explaining the week after at a social gathering. Mrs. Lutz had gone into her yard at 11 o'clock Saturday night to take in the clothes she had washed that day, when she was also attracted by the appearance of the sky. An immense house was shown vividly with an effect that she describes as wind waving through a field, or as a picture would be on a screen if the canvas was being blown about. Elaborating further, she said the light she saw in the sky made it light enough in the yard for her to see to wring out the clothes. It was from an object in the sky that appeared bright and almost as bright as the sun. As she looked across the fields, she could see the wheat stubbles as plainly as in the daytime and every object in the fields. It seemed to start at a point over Nescopec Hill and swing across the heavens until it got to a point near the mountain and would go out, reappear and swing back, and did this 3 times across the skies. She stared at the phenomena and hurried into the house, and was adamant that the vision remained in the sky for 10 minutes or more. The sky was filled with stars, but there was no moon, so when the light disappeared, it was pitch black out. She's adamant that she was not fooled, was not dreaming, and her eyes are not bad. The description Mrs. Lutz gave of the building she saw pictured in the sky, and that of Mr. Huddleston, were almost identical, and they were very firm in confirming to the press that they had not been simply backing each other's spottings up. They made it really clear. Neither of them offered any solution, and together with everyone to whom they told their experiences with, both were greatly mystified. Still another, Miss Pearl Purcell, declares that she saw in the heavens the form of an angel. She took it as an omen and couldn't get it off her mind. When she saw the strange sight of the sky, she told no one other than her mother, also fearing ridicule. Which is fair. It's easy to label folks who have witnessed the unknown as crazy. Residents from a nearby town the next week declared they also saw strange sights, and in large numbers during the latter part of the week, they viewed the phenomena. The sights they saw were the same as those of Mrs. Lutz. Peter Edinger of West Berwick declared that in the daytime he saw outlined in the skies an exact reproduction of a flag sporting bars of black, red, and a tint that resembled a light bluish green, and there was not a cloud in the sky at the time, and upon going home, he looked in the encyclopedia to see if there was any nation that had a flag like it, but found none. That there had been some phenomena in the skies seems likely, for Scotttown citizens whose attendance attention was directed to the flashes that resembled those seen by Mrs. Lutz, declared that, there could be no mistake as to what they had seen with their own eyes. Let me know in the comments what y'all think happened there, because I can't even wrap my mind around it. In third place, we have turquoise Norwegian light. No, not the Northern Lights. Trust me, I would have ruled this out if I thought that was the case. When I tell y'all I filter through hundreds of reported sightings every day to bring you all the best of the best, I mean it. This is quality stuff. The Norwegian spiral anomaly of December of 2009 appeared in the night sky over Norway and was visible and photographed from northern Norway and Sweden. The spiral consisted of a blue beam of light with a grayish spiral emanating from one end of it. The light could be seen in all of Trøndelag to the south and all across 3 northern counties, which compose northern Norway, as well as from northern Sweden, and lasted for roughly 10 minutes. According to sources, it looks like a blue light coming from behind a mountain, stopping in midair before starting to spiral outwards. A similar, though less spectacular event had also occurred in Norway the month before. Both events had visual features of failed flights of Russian missiles, even though that was quickly ruled out as the case. Hundreds of calls flooded the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, as residents wanted to know what they were seeing. A Norwegian celebrity astronomer, whose name I absolutely cannot pronounce, I swear I tried, pointed out the area over which the light had been observed was exceptionally large, like I said before, covering all of northern Norway and more. Some folks propose that it could be a wormhole opening up, and while that makes the most sense to me, let me know if y'all have any other theories. In second place, we have Swedish ghost rockets. In 1946, just 1 year after the Second World War had ended, a wave of weird spottings in Europe over the Scandinavian countries was dubbed the ghost rocket craze. The Swedish government covered up the entire incident and started releasing information only 40 years later. This supports my theory that the US government is bullying all other countries into hiding unknown spottings. One notable incident happened on the night of June 9th, 1946, when a brilliant light streaked over Helsinki, Finland, with a smoke trail and the sound of thunder. Its luminous trail persisted for 10 minutes, and the same incident repeated the next night. But in this case, the ghost rocket turned and went back in the direction from which it had come, which certainly ruled out the possibility of it being a natural phenomenon like a meteor or asteroid. On June 12th, the Swedish defense staff asked military personnel to report their sightings through official channels, admitting that they had been aware of the phenomenon since May. I tried hunting for this specific event, but I couldn't find any specifics as to what the heck happened. That they covered up, so I'm going to assume more of the same. And that rules out military crafts being involved. On July 9th alone, more than 200 ghost rocket sightings were reported, many of them being described as tubular or spindle-shaped objects flying low and slowly, with little or no sound. Soon the Swedish government established a special ghost rocket committee to look into the matter. On August 11th of 1946, more than 300 reports of strange sightings were observed in just the Stockholm area alone. Soon the Swedish newspapers started censoring most reports of ghost rockets, but reports continued to come in from other Scandinavian countries like Norway, which provided some of the best reports. In 1984, when the Swedish government finally opened its ghost rocket files, researchers found that more than 1,500 reports had been secretly collected during this period. Common characteristics of these ghost rockets that were described by both military and civilian eyewitnesses included great speed, intense light frequently associated with missiles, lack of sound, and approximate horizontal flight, and none of these fit with any flying objects of natural origin like meteors, asteroids, or comets. The interesting part was the Swedish government tried to blame the sightings on the Soviet Union, accusing the Soviets of testing the captured German V-2 rockets, a good diversionary tactic that many folks believed, and reminds me of the American government calling UFOs weather balloons, but years later it came out that the Soviets had immediately moved the captured German rockets to Poland. So, no bueno. 40 years later, Swedish air engineer Eric Malmberg, who was the secretary of Sweden's defense staff committee that dealt with this matter, stated that everyone on the committee, including the chairman, knew that these ghost rockets did not originate from the Soviet Union. I wish I could cuss right now, but I'll settle for "You don't say." Golly gee, I'm shocked. Not. On the other hand, based on the reports acquired, it appeared that some kind of a cruise missile was fired on Sweden, but no nation had sophisticated cruise missile technology in 1946. By the end of 1946, as reports of ghost rockets from Scandinavia began to diminish, but reports of similar sightings from Hungary, Greece, Morocco, and Portugal started coming in, that made this truly a global phenomenon that has not been solved to this day. In first place, we have flying monkeys. Yep. You heard me right. While The Wizard of Oz might be one of my favorite films of all time, heck, I've even cosplayed Dorothy alongside my childhood Toto plush. It took me a moment to wrap my head around this. Darla of Jacksonville, Florida experienced this event in May of 2017 and it left her bewildered. She was driving on a neighborhood street and the strange animal was above the roadway. She could see its head and it looked like a monkey, but it was smaller, similar in size to like a prairie dog or gopher. She found herself repeating, "What is that?" to her friend that was in the car with her as she drove around it, as it wasn't really moving up there in the sky. Her friend thought it was a possum until they passed it again and agreed that it definitely didn't resemble one. Darla eventually turned the vehicle around, and all she could see were wings that seemed too large for the size realize of what the heck she had seen just starting to fly away. The logical part of her brain took over and deemed whatever the heck it was too big to be an owl, so maybe it was, captured by an owl while it was in the sky. At this point, we've named off every similar creature in the same size range. Darla pulled over to mentally dissect what she had just seen to try and make sense of it. It was a being that was kind of on the smaller size, with a head, a neck, 2 legs, and extremely large wings. If anyone has any solid guesses, feel free to let me know in the comments. She knew that the nearby Walmart had monkeys living in the parking lot after independent owners let them escape, so that added to it but also left her confused. All that comes to my brain after that description for me is like the damn IKEA monkey, but wearing like a Wizard of Oz evil witch uniform instead of the oversized coat. I'm glad Darla managed to avoid any harm to herself or to her vehicle, but I know I'll be wondering exactly what the heck the creature could be for the rest of the night.
Number 5. Green flash. No. The green flash is not referring to one of the many flash variations that CW keeps throwing at us. The green flash refers to a glowing green light that can occasionally be seen on the horizon at sunrise and sunset. Green flashes can be seen from any altitude, so long as you have a clear view of the horizon. They're usually seen on the ocean's horizon, but they have also been spotted over cloud tops and mountain tops as well. Though they can be spotted from any latitude, the flashes do not last long, and you would have to be looking at the exact right moment, as they last less than a second. Before the phenomenon was explained, many people thought that it was some sort of alien ship moving faster than the speed of light. But thanks to the power of the scientific method, researchers were able to provide everyone with an answer as to what the green flash's origin is. I'm gonna say the official explanation and then break it down so it's easier to follow. The green flash occurs because the atmosphere causes the light from the sun to separate or refract into different frequencies. Green flashes are enhanced by mirages, which increase refraction. The blue component of the sun's light is the last to disappear below the horizon, but the blue is preferentially scattered out of the line of sight, and the remaining light ends up appearing green. Okay, so that sounds like gibberish. Let's break it down. The gases in our atmosphere may cause the light from the sun to separate. Think of like the triangle with the rainbow, or change directions into different frequencies. Think of our atmosphere as the triangle. They are then enhanced by mirages, which is when light rays are bent to create multiple or distorted images of an object. The mirages further increase the bending or redirection of the light. The light does not appear as blue like the sky or ocean because the light's frequency is being scattered through a process commonly known as Rayleigh scattering. I'm not a physicist, so I don't understand it, but if any of you guys know, leave a comment, please. And that is how the green flash exists. Confusing, yes, but still amazing. Honestly, the first time I went through the explanation, I started thinking how much easier it would be to just say it was a spaceship. But no, you guys mean way too much to me. Number 4, volcanic lightning. Because this is still the scary channel, I dropped my section on rainbow clouds and exchanged it for the much scarier volcanic lightning, also known as dirty thunderstorms. But I don't like the way that dirty thunderstorms sound, so I will be calling it by the much cooler name, volcanic lightning. Volcanic lightning was first recorded in 79 AD by Pliny the Younger, who said, "There was a most intense darkness rendered more appalling by the fitful gleam of torches at intervals obscured by the transient blaze of lightning." Although Pliny's writing sounds almost nonsensical to most people now, me included, the visual that he was able to draw was incredible. The first studies of volcanic lightning were conducted at Mount Vesuvius, and they took place from 1858 to 1872. Researchers studied about 4 eruptions over the large span of time. Volcanic lightning is an electrical discharge caused by a volcanic eruption, opposed to a regular thunderstorm. The lightning comes from colliding fragmenting particles of volcanic ash and sometimes ice, which generates static electricity within the volcanic plume. Moist atmospheric convection and ice formations also help to trigger the volcanic lightning. But unlike your normal thunderstorm, volcanic lightning storms can happen before any ice crystals have formed in the ash cloud. There are many different ways that the lightning can charge. There's ice charging, frictional charging, radioactive charging, fractal emission, and there's also factors like plume height. Ice charging is the process that ordinary thunderstorms use to produce lightning, as water clouds become electrified from colliding ice crystals and falling rain, snow, or hail. So, when it's colder, there's more charge from the ice. Frictional charging is fairly self-explanatory. It's when the different particles and debris collide into each other and create high volumes of static electricity. It's similar to ice charging. Radioactive charging is far too hard to explain, so forget I mentioned it, but Google it. It is interesting. Fractal emission is the generation of charge through the breaking up of rock particles, like the volcano's rocks cracking. The height of the plume also plays a big factor in the power of the storm. Taller plumes may have a large concentration of water, which will contribute to lightning activity, while shorter plumes receive more of their charge from fractal emissions. Volcanic lightning has been sighted at Mount Augustine in Alaska, Mount Etna in Sicily, Taal Volcano in the Philippines, and at an Iceland volcano that I cannot pronounce. So, if you have the urge to witness a terrifying phenomenon in person, head over at the exact time with the exact conditions, and you may just be fortunate enough to witness a dirty thunderstorm. Number 2. Red halo over Italy. This next one seems like it's straight out of an alien invasion movie. On March 27th, 2023, a red halo made of light flashed over Pisano, Italy, appearing and disappearing within milliseconds. Because the event happened so quickly, most people didn't get a chance to become terrified and probably thought the people gasping at the sky and shuddering were experiencing a fit of mass hysteria. Though the flash was quick and many missed it, nature photographer Walter Benotto was able to snap a super cute pic of the camera-shy ring. Though the giant ring, spanning about 360 kilometers in size, appeared to be directly over the town, it was actually over central Italy and the Adriatic Sea. Forced perspective made it appear that the ring was directly over the town. This kind of natural phenomenon is known as an emission of light and very low frequency perturbations due to electromagnetic pulse sources. It is also thankfully known as an ELV. Super cute. ELVs are a rare type of stratospheric or mesospheric perturbations resulting from intense thunderstorm electrification. The red rings are created when electromagnetic pulses are given off by extremely powerful lightning hitting Earth's ionosphere. When EMP's electrons hit the ionosphere, the charged particles excite nitrogen atoms, which give them a reddish glow. ELVs are usually only visible to satellites because of their need to get in and get out before anyone on the ground can snap a pic. So they were only discovered in 1990 by shuttles armed with cameras, which is crazy because that's so recent. Most phenomena had been discovered and researched well before then. Benotto has been praised for having taken the best photo from the ground of an ELV. Benotto believes that the ELV was generated by a huge thunderstorm 200 kilometers away from Pisano. This red ring dazzled many. Extraterrestrial theorists had a field day before the explanation was released. I mean, a giant glowing ring appeared in the sky, seemingly moving quicker than the speed of light. I would absolutely be preparing to fight off a probing alien species. Number 1. Red Sprites. Red Sprites appear as luminous red-orange flashes. They mostly occur in clusters above the troposphere, which is the lowest layer of Earth's atmosphere. Sightings of these events stretch back to at least 1886, but they were only first photographed over 100 years after the recorded discovery, in 1989, by scientists from the University of Minnesota. Sprites are a cold plasma phenomena that differ from regular lightning due to the lack of hot channel temperatures. If you know how fluorescent lights work, they've been compared to fluorescent tube discharges. Sprites are reddish-orange in their upper regions, and their tendrils are blue. A reddish halo may also appear before the sprites do, almost as a warning sign or as a, hey, look what I can do. Sprites only last a few milliseconds and are usually triggered by the discharges of positive lightning between the thundercloud and the ground. But sprites caused by negative ground flashes have also occurred. They often appear in groups of 2 or more, and their huge size lights up the sky with a terrifyingly mesmerizing show. Red sprites spotted in France have been complimented for their alluring beauty, but they also kind of resemble a nervous system to me, like the intertwining tendrils and the almost spine-like line running up the center. The sprites have been divided into 3 categories: jellyfish, column, and carrot. The jellyfish sprite is very large, up to 50 kilometers by 50 kilometers. Column sprites are large-scale electrical discharges above the Earth. They are still not quite understood. Carrot sprites are a column sprite, but with long tendrils, and I'd assume they're even less understood than the column. The phenomenon has been seen over North America, Central Africa, Australia, South America, Europe, the Sea of Japan, and Asia, so pretty much everywhere. Your chances of capturing a picture of a sprite is pretty low though. Super specific conditions must be met, and your equipment would have to be pretty expensive to catch a good picture.
Alrighty everybody, we're gonna kick off today with Project Galileo. The discovery of, let's see if I get this right folks, well-rounded, spherical, metallic marbles of less than a millimeter in size and weighing less than 1 milligram found in the Pacific Pacific Ocean at the site of a crash of a basketball court-sized object from outside the solar system back in 2014 led scientists to claim that we have possibly found remnants of an alien ship or discovered alien technology. Avi Loeb, the lead scientist at the beginning of his search along with his team in the Pacific Ocean, had remarked that we just embarked on a terrestrial ship in search of the possible relics of an extraterrestrial ship. It's a fun phrase to say. The tiny spheres are composed of a metallic substance unmatched to any existing alloys in our solar system. Scientists are even claiming the objects could be the first time that humanity has found solid evidence of interstellar objects, suggesting the possible existence of aliens. According to scientists, these spheres are perhaps the strongest contenders for being an alien artifact. Yes, I keep repeating myself, and yes, I will continue to do so. Because, if this claim is proved, it could become a possible evidence. It's the proof. It's the concrete proof that we've been looking for. Even the US Space Command is believed to have confirmed the possibility of the particles being not from this solar system. Yee! So exciting. Next up, we have a word that's about to be fun for me to say over and over and over again. Oumuamua. I swear I tried looking up how to pronounce things for today, folks. I'm not perfect. That's what the internet told me. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Please be nice. This cosmic visitor decided to make a spectacular entrance back in 2017. How? Well, this massive elongated object, resembling a cosmic cigar, hurtled past Earth at an extraordinary speed. We're talking 196,000 miles per hour, leaving astronomers and enthusiasts alike in awe. NASA, ever the cosmic sentinel, proclaimed it a celestial emissary, a cosmic envoy from beyond our solar borders. Its trajectory, its otherworldly speed, set it apart as the first known interstellar object to venture into our cosmic neighborhood. However, the origins of this little wanderer remained shrouded in mystery, a puzzle that intrigued and perplexed the detectives of NASA. Going back to our expert that I consulted earlier, Avi Loeb, with the audacity to entertain the possibility of it being the extraterrestrial, postulated that it might not be just a little cosmic wanderer, but a relic of advanced alien technology. This little artifact cast adrift from a civilization beyond our cosmic horizon. His hypothesis injected a dose of extraterrestrial intrigue into the scientific discourse, igniting the imaginations of those like us who are like, aliens? Aliens? Please? Please? Granted, the overall jury of scientists remains divided, and other scientists who are like, I'm more of a skeptic, were like, okay, what about this? It might be a little something dislodged from a planetary abode years and years and years ago that's just sort of went through gravity, went through space, and made it here. But hey, it's something that has caused a lot of people, a lot of experts, a lot of, I guess you could say, enthusiasts like myself, who are just like, this would be really cool. All of these theories colliding, they each offer a great glimpse into the possible origin story of this little, I don't know what. Since its discovery by 3 rockhounds in the mountains of eastern California, this little 2x3-inch stone-like mass has been at the heart of speculation around the world. It's known as the Koso artifact, and honestly, it wouldn't look out of place in my hometown for folks who play around former mine sites. By the way, it was named after the California mountain range where it was found. And also, it's not mining debris. Also, nobody's really sure what it is. Was it a rock embedded 500,000 years ago with an electronic device left on Earth by alien visitors? Or was it the remnant of a long-gone advanced civilization? Why all the speculation? Well, when the rock-like object was sliced in half shortly after its discovery, a perfectly circular, porcelain-like section was found inside of it. In the center of that section was a tiny pin that corresponded to a magnet. An X-ray clearly showed the metal pin with a spring or helix at one end, and the other half of the object showed metal covering the porcelain-like cylinder. So, how could this technology end up inside such an ancient mass? People have called it the world's oldest spark plug, while skeptics have dismissed it as a geological anomaly. But it's a complete mystery. There's no doubt there. The saga started innocently enough on February 13th of 1961 when a couple of friends went to a peak to look for interesting mineral specimens because they owned a gem and gift shop, and they're like, okay, what can we hawk? They're like, this could be a geode, which, if you don't know what geode is, it's a rock with a cavity that's lined with really colorful, really pretty minerals. Tourists love them. I have one that I got during a field trip to Science North way back in the day. They're beautiful. So, Virginia Maxey, one of the shop owners, wrote a letter to the editor of Desert Magazine being like, I don't know. It's not just a pretty little geode. In the opinion of one trained geologist, it has taken at least 500,000 years for this nodule to attain its present form, but when we cut it open, this is a man-made object. Now, she never identified the geologist that they got this quote from, but it was enough for all the stories and all the discourse to begin. And we're talking from back then till present day. Chad Wyndham of Pendleton, Oregon, former president of the Spark Plug Collectors of America, still remembers looking at the X-ray. Yep, there's a club for everything, everybody. Even though it was poor quality, according to him, it was 100% no doubt in his mind that it was a champion plug, because at the time they made more spark plugs than everybody else combined. Okay. There were mining operations near where the artifact was found, and a lot of people were like, hey, it could come from there. So what happened after the discovery? Not much. The artifact collected dust for a lot of years in a closet of the son of one of the rockhounds who found it, becoming a family heirloom, a party piece. Okay, my vote, because right now we're going a little too sciencey. Alien hardware that wound up in a concretion situation. So typically you see concretions when stopping by a seashore, in a riverbed, in the desert, poking around mountains, all these little spherical rock-like objects. One way they form is as a sediment builds up in successive layers on something like a shell or a pebble, or random alien tech hanging out just long enough. Think about it, okay? An old mine would be a perfect hideout for UFOs, and an easy way to explain the unexplainable. Or the aliens could have visited before the mine became a mine, and the tech inspired spark plugs. The possibilities are endless, folks, if you just open up your minds to aliens. The 12,500-year-old Shgir Idol has been compared to alien heads by a number of people who are, pro-paranormal, and if that phrase isn't music to your ears, you must be new around here, so welcome! It is the oldest known wooden sculpture, and it was carved during the Mesolithic period, shortly after the end of the last ice age, and is twice as old as Egypt's Great Pyramid. It was discovered on January 24th of 1890 at a depth of about 4 meters in the peat bog of Shgir, on the eastern slope of the Middle Urals, near the village of Kalata, and approximately 100 kilometers from Yekaterinburg. If I got any of those wrong, I'm sorry. Investigations in this area had begun 40 years earlier, after the discovery of a variety of prehistoric objects in an open cast gold mine. Wow, my mine cover-up story is working really well, ain't it? So the statue was extracted in 10 parts. Professor D.I. Lobanov combined the main fragments to rebuild a sculpture that was about 2.8 meters high. Fast forward to 1914, an archaeologist proposed a variant of his reconstruction by integrating the unused fragments. Well, and now this little thing went from 2.8 to 5.3 meters high. Radio host Brady D'Angelo, or Brady in the Morning, posted to Facebook saying, looks like an alien's head to me. So many alien-looking drawings and artifacts in our distant past, it's crazy. I'm not saying our ancestors might have been aliens and they took their DNA and fused it with a monkey's DNA to create humans. I'm not saying that at all. Not all. Not yet. The perfectly preserved wooden sculpture is believed to be proof of the vast changes in climate since it was made. Typically, wood tends to break down in most environments and doesn't really last to be discovered by archaeologists. Well, compared to stuff like stone and metal. So this weird statue and its carvings might be proof of alien artifacts just landed here, blended in with the environments, and just hanging out, waiting to be discovered. Alright, let's see if I can end today without bungling another word. The Sanxingdui site discoveries. The 3,000-year-old treasures are believed to have reignited debates on the existence of aliens, which, yes, please. Despite scientists saying the artifacts could change all we know about human history, I don't know, looking at this mask, it's an alien. Look, it's got these wide-set eyes, a deep nose, which is similar to earlier discoveries of bronze human statues, and, well, it looks kind of alien. Evidence of an ancient culture was first found in 1927 when a well-to-do farmer unearthed a large stash of jade relics while dredging an irrigation ditch, many of which throughout the years found their ways into the hands of private collectors. Which means they're valuable. Fast forward to 1931, the discovery was brought to the attention of an Anglican missionary who recognized the importance of the discovery and contacted a local magistrate, as well as Daniel Sheets Dye, a professor of geology at West China Union University. The three of them then visited the location and photographed and measured the site, as you do. Then we get to 1934, when David Crockett Graham, the new director of the museum, organized the first archaeological excavation. Okay, let's get forward to 1986, when local workers accidentally found sacrificial pits containing thousands of gold, bronze, jade, and pottery artifacts that have been broken, perhaps ritually disfigured, burned, and carefully buried. Containing approximately 800 objects, the second sacrificial pit was found a little less than a month later, only about 20 to 30 meters from the first one. Bronze objects found in the second sacrificial pit included sculptures of humans, animal face sculptures, bells, decorative animals such as dragons, snakes, chicks, birds, and axes. Tables, masks, and belts were some of the objects found that were made out of gold, while objects made out of jade included axes, other weapons, tablets, rings, and tubes. There was also a large number of ivory and clamshells. Researchers were astonished to find an artistic style that was completely unknown in the history of Chinese art. So here's the alien stuff. In March of 2021, more than 500 cultural relics, including a 3,000-year-old gold mask, were discovered at a 4.6 square mile area outside of the provincial capital of Chengdu. The mask is estimated to be made from 84% gold and weighs 280 grams. According to the National Culture Heritage Administration, the items were recovered from 6 newly discovered sacrificial pits. And they found a bunch of other stuff, by the way. These 6 pits were discovered at the site between 2020 and 2022 during a renewed slate of excavations. And what do you know? Scientists don't have answers for how they came to be. So, once again folks, Alien artifacts. They fell out of the sky, they match what we have here on Earth. We've always been trying to replicate what we knew that came from out of there. Seriously, look at the pictures. Back at the end of March of this year, San Antonians found themselves transfixed, awed, and a little bit mystified after spotting a strange bright light in the sky that just didn't make any rational sense. Folks reported seeing the object from Seguin in the Alamo City to New Braunfels, and shared video of what appeared to be a bright light moving slowly before suddenly picking up speed and creating a ring in the sky. Now, when you're watching the video, a couple seconds later, it fades from view. Was it an asteroid, a comet, or something else? Some folks looking for a rational explanation immediately assumed it must be from SpaceX launching its Falcon 9 satellite. And hey, it's far from the first time that mysterious sights have been spotted over the state. There's a video from last June out of North Texas that shows a fuzzy light in the sky. It was moving from the west to the east and appeared to be in the clouds, although there were no clouds around. And as it got closer, it blew a cloud of smoke and then it turned into a ring. Now, some folks think that it's likely that the fuzzy nature of the light was actually all 22 of the Starlink satellites bunched together, but it hasn't been proven one way or the other. Previous videos have shown bright or otherwise weird objects in the skies, and sometimes during the day. In some cases, the prevailing theory is that they were Mylar balloons. In other cases, SpaceX. But since nobody has a definitive answer, I'm going with still unexplained. Now, if I'm talking about incidents we don't have the video of, there's one from Athens, Texas that will always live on, rent-free in my brain. So a retired military fighter and commercial pilot who was also a former astronaut, he once submitted this account of what happened one night to an online message board. I think it was July 5th in 2013 around 10:15 p.m. And this message board, by the way, was the National UFO Reporting Center. Just a silly little thing. So he reported that he and his family were sitting outside, and when he looked up into the sky, he observed a fairly large orange glowing orb moving rapidly overhead at around 90 degrees of elevation. A minute or two later, his whole family spotted a group of 3 similar objects along the same flight path as the first one. The objects allegedly gave off no sound and seemed to glow from atmospheric heating. He and his family attempted to record the object using their iPhones, but the grainy dark video was of no evidential use. A direct quote from him reads, "They moved much faster than orbital satellites," so like the International Space Station, or airplanes, but much slower than meteors and did not change brightness as a meteor would upon entering the atmosphere. So if a former pilot and astronaut has no explanation for what he witnessed, what the heck was it? Also, what makes Texas a UFO hotspot? Let me know what you think in the comments. An enormous circular halo of eerie red light, which looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, recently flashed in the night sky above Italy. The bizarre disk appeared and disappeared within milliseconds, meaning most folks likely missed the strange spectacle. But one person, a nature photographer by the name of Walter Binotto, managed to capture a little image of the luminous halo in the sky above the town of Posagno in northern Italy on March 27th of this year. However, the red ring was not actually located above the town. Instead, the massive circle, which was around 224 miles in diameter, blinked above central Italy and part of the Adriatic Sea. It was only a forced perspective that made the ring look as if it were hanging above the town. So what was it? Well, there's a couple of theories. Obviously, UFOs are on the table, since we don't know for sure, and while around here, the powers that be assume UFO first and science later. But yes, we've got to say what people are thinking it could be. According to spaceweather.com, it could be an emission of light and very low frequency perturbations due to electromagnetic pulse sources, or ELV for short. Now, ELVs are a rare type of stratospheric and mesospheric perturbations resulting from intense thunderstorm electrification, known as Sprite. The red rings are created when electromagnetic pulses, or EMPs, given off by lightning hit Earth's ionosphere, the ionized part of the upper atmosphere that stretches between 50 to 400 miles above the ground. Now, due to their short-lived nature, ELVs are normally visible only to satellites orbiting Earth and were discovered just in 1990 thanks to cameras on board NASA's space shuttles. Binotto's new image is likely the best picture of one ever from the ground, according to spaceweather.com. The photographer believes that the ELV was produced by an EMP generated from a large thunderstorm near Ancona, a city around 174 miles southeast of Posagno. Now, normally lightning bolts do not emit EMPs because they do not carry enough current, but apparently during this storm, an unusually powerful bolt, at least 10 times more powerful than regular lightning bolts, likely generated the electrical shockwave, which then hit the ionosphere, according to, once again, spaceweather.com. When electrons from within the EMP hit the ionosphere, the charged particles excite nitrogen atoms, which then give off the reddish glow. Still a UFO, because even though it matches up somewhat to elves, it doesn't quite do so perfectly, fitting in with a popular theory that UFOs can indeed camouflage into Earth byproducts. Look, this one was just having an off day. Something odd happened back in 1950 when astronomers noticed that 9 star-like point sources of light had simultaneously appeared in a photographic plate acquired at the Palomar Observatory in Southern California as part of the famous Palomar Sky Survey. That might or might not sound unusual, but hey, none of those point sources were seen in images taken just before of the same patch of sky, and likewise, they didn't appear in images taken after either. That remains true through today, even with images from current surveys that are much more sensitive to faint objects. So what were these 9 weird transients? Well, that's the question addressed by Beatrice Villarroel at the Nordic Institute for Theoretical Physics in Stockholm, Sweden, and colleagues in a new paper. Beatrice conducts a citizen science project called VASCO, which is short for the Vanishing and Appearing Sources during a Century of Observations. The project searches for exotic or rare transients, and it has probed a time baseline of about 70 years, using data from the United States Naval Observatory Catalog. So far, citizen scientists and professional astronomers working via VASCO have found about 100 transient objects, mostly on Palomar Sky Survey red plates. Beatrice and her team point out that astronomers have seen stars, and even an exoplanet that seemed to vanish before this. Like, for example, there are variable stars, whose brightness waxes and wanes. There are supernova, asteroids, and variable active galactic nuclei. All of these can change their brightness on timescales ranging from minutes to years. But the 9 point sources of light found in a red-sensitive sky survey plate back in 1950, yeah, those are different. All 9 sources were absent in all of the images taken before or after. Astronomers didn't find the objects in a blue-sensitive photographic plate from 30 minutes earlier. They didn't see them on a red-sensitive plate taken 6 days later. Whatever they were, the weird transients were unusual in being so numerous and so fleeting in nature. Now you see them, now you never see them again, which is very odd. Now the red plate from the survey reached down to a magnitude of about +20, vastly fainter than the human eye can see. The 9 objects haven't shown up in more modern photographic surveys either, which are more sensitive to faint objects. Now, if you've been thinking the transient might be akin to a lens flare on a modern photograph, you're not alone. Way back in 1950, the glass cover used during scanning could produce false stars in the image. But according to new paper, the objects in the photographic plate don't have the shape expected from such ghost images. As of now, it seems that out of the possibilities mentioned, satellites could be the closest match. But this happened a full 7 years before the launch of the first satellite. So what do we think? UFO. Next up, a tale out of Alaska, which tends to be home to a lot of weird stuff. In February of last year, an unidentified object was brought down about 10 miles off of the frozen coast of Alaska, and this was announced by US officials, and details about it are still pretty quiet. US military pilots sent up to examine the object gave conflicting accounts of what they saw, which is part of the reason why the Pentagon was cautious in describing what the object actually is, according to a source briefed on the intelligence. Now, this incident marked the second time that the US jets had taken down an object in less than a week, following the bringing down of a suspected Chinese spy balloon off the coast of South Carolina the week before. The North American Aerospace Defense Command said it was monitoring high-altitude airborne objects over northern Canada, and military aircraft were operating in the area from Alaska and Canada. Once again, this is according to a news release from the agency. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced shortly after that he ordered the downing of the object, but it's not clear what it is, or whether it has any relation to the spy balloon. Now, Trudeau said he spoke with President Joe Biden and that Canadian forces would lead the object recovery operation, but they were tight-lipped after the fact. F-35 fighter jets were set up to investigate after the object was first detected, and brought back limited, and by that I mean none, in terms of info about the object. Some pilots said the object interfered with the sensors on their planes, which checks for UFO tech. Other pilots also claimed to have seen no identifiable propulsion on the object, and could not explain how it was staying in the air, despite cruising at an altitude of 40,000 feet. Searches for the unidentified objects were concluded with no signs of debris from either, which, and this is according to multiple government statements, which means either they didn't find anything, or for sure they found alien tech and they're keeping their mouths shut. Now, Canada tends to be more coy about alien sightings compared to the US. But members of the Mutual UFO Network have made claims about alien bases found underwater off of the coast of Alaska, and this is based on eyewitness reports from like decades ago. Just saying. On a nice sunny spring day in 1876, a strange thing happened at Alan Crouch's home in Olympia Springs, Kentucky. His wife was outside making soap when chunks of raw meat, some of them more than 3 inches in diameter, started falling out of the sky all around her. And as newspapers reported, 2 men, whose identities are unknown, tasted the meat and thought that it was either venison or mutton. This grisly mystery went unsolved for quite a long time, since researchers debated the cause of the meat shower. Now, there was one logical conclusion from a Dr. L.D. Kostenbein. He thought it was vulture upchuck, because vultures are known to, do that as a way to defend themselves or to make their bodies lighter so they can fly easily. But at the end of the day, nobody was able to prove that for sure. Nobody found a vulture. So, once again, UFO?